Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to another card making video. So today we're going to be using this Happy Campus stamp set by Crafter's Companions. I showed this in a recent haul video. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a starry background, and I'm using then this new Nuvo shimmer powder. This is the Meteorite shower, and all I've done is just put some of the powder onto some watercolour cardstock, and then I've just spritzed it with water. And I really love seeing all those different kinds of colours that sort of mix together and create these really beautiful backgrounds. So I do love this one, especially for a night sky. I think this is lovely. The more water you put on it, the more that the colours kind of mix together. I did want to have sort of as many of those colours sort of being shown as possible, but because then I created different layers with the shimmer powder, it all kind of ended up sort of going into one kind of colour, so those colours sort of mixed together. So all I'm doing in between the layers is just using my heat gun. So I think I have seen other videos where they tell you just to leave it alone and it tends to look a little bit better, but I wanted to create this kind of layer, trying to get as many of those colours seen as possible. I did find that I had that little section in the middle that was sort of like pooling together, but I just used a dry wet wipe and I just mopped some of that up. And then this is kind of my final result. So again, you can kind of see those colours in there sort of mixing together. You can see the blues then with those sort of pinks and purple colours. But I'm going to come in just with some Distress Oxide colours. So I've got blue China here, and I'm just going to go around the outside just to kind of make this a full background, but it's just going to then add a little bit more colour to it. It's going to give us a really beautiful sort of night sky, and then because it's shimmer powder as well, obviously it's going to give us that really lovely bit of shimmer. So I'm literally just going really roughly around the edges with this broken china, and then I'm going to come in with some picked raspberry as well, exactly the same, just to add that little bit of colour and emphasise that kind of pinky purple sort of tones that's in this background as well. So once I'm happy with the colour that I've got on the background, I want to again turn this more into a night sky. So I'm going to add some splatters on here. So I'm going to just take my watercolour set. So this is a really basic set that you've seen me use before. I'm just going to take this white and I'm going to mix it up really well and just do some splatters on this background. So I did find that with this white, it kind of dried back. It wasn't really it didn't really sort of show up sort of too much as it sort of dried back a little bit. So I did decide to come in then with the Cosmic Shimmer. This is the Pearlescent Mica powder, and this then just sort of stayed on the surface a little bit more, sort of kept its colour and its shine, and it just looked really beautiful for that night sky. So I've set that to one side, and now we can get started stamping and colouring in our images. So I'm going to take a bunch of the images from this Happy Campus stamp set. So I don't end up using all of them on the card, but then I did want to kind of get as much as possible, and then we could kind of create a scene. But of course then I can just save them for the next time, pop them in a pot, and save them for when I create another card using this set. So I'm using my stamping platform just to make sure that I get a really good impression of these images, because this is the first time that I've used this set. So I'm going to pop them in there. I've just got some plain white stamping cardstock, and I'm using my Memento Tuxedo black ink because I want to use my alcohol markers, and this is then an alcohol friendly ink pad. So I'm stamping this up a couple times. You can see where it's not quite hitting some of the points. Again, this is mainly due to the fact that they are a new set. But once we've got all of those images stamped and I'm happy, then we can go ahead and start colouring. So I'm going to use my Spectrum Noir TriBlend markers for this. So I'm just going to kind of go along. I'm not doing anything sort of out of the ordinary. It's really basic colouring here, just sort of getting that colour down. It's really great now having the full set of TriBlend markers, because it means that I've got all the colours that I would need. I can create full scenes like this and not have everything kind of have to be the same sort of colour. So underneath this tent, so I've created just sort of a grassy area. So I didn't know how much of the dye actually cut out. So I just decided to cut this underneath, colour this underneath there, just in case then I could use that for the actual scene itself. So I also then used my Copic sketch markers as well, and I used this for just a little bit in the fire, and then I really wanted to colour this tent in. Again, I don't always get a chance to sort of use them because I don't always pick up the oranges, but it was really great to be able to use it on such a big image like this tent. So that was really great, and I think I do prefer them, I think, to the TriBlend markers, only because obviously having that brush tip, I just think they are a little bit of a better quality. So I'm excited to sort of pick up a couple more colours in that range and sort of maybe start to build that sort of setup. So within this stamp set, so they do have the coordinating dies as well, which I think is brilliant. So I pictured this set for $14.99, and I think that's such great value for the size and the amount of images and stamps you get, and then also the fact you get the coordinating dies with these as well. So I just popped the coordinating dies in the right place, used some washi tape just to hold this down, and then I ran that through my Gemini die cutting machine, and you can see they've just cut so perfectly. So once we've got all of these popped out, so I'm going to go ahead and create a bottom of the scene, so you can see underneath that tent it did cut a lot of that sort of grassy area off that I did colour. So I'm just going to kind of do the same thing again. So I've got a piece of cardstock that I've cut to the size of my card, so this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm literally just going to colour myself a ground in. So you could use a patterns paper if you've got some, that would work well, but I'm literally just using the Alpine Green colour in this TriBlend marker range. I'm just laying down the colour, so this is the medium colour that I'm using here. So you do get a couple of lines in it. I did try to sort of blend it out as best I could, but I think the end result sort of looks nicer when it's dried back just a little bit. So I'm then going to put in the shadows, so the exact same shadows that I put in when I done it, when it came to on the stamping page. So I'm just going to kind of put the image back in the place I want it to be, and then I can go ahead and try and get those shadows to kind of go back in and make it look like it's not sort of two separate images. So I'm using the dark colour for that shadow right underneath the tree, under the trees and under the tent itself, and then I'm just going to kind of blend that back out with the medium, and again then I'm just going to put a little bit of the lighter colour near the bottom just to help sort of blend those out. So because I don't need the top of this because I've got my background on a separate piece, I've just cut out that piece of grass. You can see I still got a bit of white, but it's totally going to hide that. And then when you put the when you actually put the tent image on there, you can't really tell that it's two separate pieces. So before I start constructing my scene, I am going to stamp a sentiment. So this is "Life is better when you're camping." So I'm putting this up in the top right hand corner. I'm going to heat emboss this with some white embossing powder. So the first thing I need to do after I've decided where I want it to go, make sure it's straight, is use my anti-static powder tool, just really liberally on here, just to make sure then that I don't get any embossing powder stuck where I don't want it to be. Then I'm just going to use the Versamark embossing ink. So this is a clear sticky ink. So I wanted to add then the moon and the stars. So this is again 3 stamps that come in the set, and I thought this would just help sort of build that scene in the sky a little bit and around that sentiment. So I'm going to do the same, just use the clear embossing ink, and then I'm going to use the white embossing powder over the top. So this is the Sweet Dixie Glacier white embossing powder. So I had already poured the embossing powder over my sentiment when I then came to stamp these images. It just meant then if I was really careful, then the ink wouldn't sort of dry or anything on my page. I wouldn't have to restamp, and then I could heat emboss it all at the same time. So that is that background, and I think that works perfectly. There's a couple of sections on the sentiment that didn't quite catch with the embossing powder, but I actually think that works really nicely with the background because it makes it look like it's kind of faded into the background just a little bit. So I do really like that. So then I'm just using my tape pen. I've just taped down the grassy section of my background, and then I'm just going to do the same with that tent scene as well. So you can see here that it really kind of blends in nicely together. So all I'm doing then is just using a combination of my tape pen and then some foam pads as well. So I've just popped the sign down with the tape pen. I'm going to prop up the campfire with the foam pads, and then I'll do the same for the map as well. And the rest of it then is just going to be flat against the card, just to give it a little bit of dimension, give it a little bit of idea of where things are, what's in the foreground, what's in the background a little bit. But I really love how this has come together. I do love these kind of stamped images. They're almost kind of cartoon style images, so you can really have the freedom to stamp and do exactly what you want and colour exactly how you want them to. It doesn't have to be realistic at all. So I'm really loving this stamp set. Obviously this is the first time I've used it, and I think we've created such a lovely background, and then of course then just doing the actual scene building itself I think is really fun. So the last thing to do is just to pop my card panel onto my blank card base. So I haven't left a border this time. I've cut it exact same size, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then that's just going to finish this card off nicely. It doesn't really need a border. So you will find links to the products in the description box down below, so just expand the description section and you'll find them there. So if you did like this video and the card, then please give this video a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do so you don't miss out on any future videos. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching and happy crafting.